Fox News alert as we await the House Speaker Paul Ryan to start speaking there. As you can see, some of his colleagues have been speaking. The House passing tax reform just a few moments ago. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith. In for Dana PERINO this afternoon. This is the Daily Briefing. The tax vote just began a short time ago, and the House has approved this historic package on tax cuts. Meanwhile, growing calls for an investigation of Senator Al Franken, as he has now been accused of forcibly kissing and groping a woman. Also, Judge Roy Moore about to speak amid new allegations of sexual misconduct. Plus, the judge declares a mistrial in the federal corruption case against New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. And now back to our top story this morning. A lot going on. The House giving tax cuts a big thumbs up. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel is keeping track of it all for us on Capitol Hill. Mike, what an afternoon.
No question about it, Sandra. Good afternoon to you. The House vote wrapping up just moments ago. It was 227 to 205 when Republicans realized they had the votes. Applause erupted on the House floor. These lawmakers got a pitch from President Trump coming up to Capitol Hill earlier today. They also got an appeal from the House Speaker, who has worked his entire career trying to get tax reform done.
It's about tax relief. It's about fairness. It's about simplicity. It's about easing the stress and anxiety that's in this country. But what we really need to do is we need better jobs, more jobs, faster economic growth, higher wages.
Earlier, key Democrats tried to attack the plan, saying this is a bad deal.
The Republicans started this process by saying that every American, everyone in America, will get a tax cut. Now they're saying, on average, people will get a tax cut. And even that isn't correct.
13 Republicans, mostly from high-tax states, and 192 Democrats opposed it. They still had enough votes to get it out of the House. Sandra?
Mike, what about the tax reform push on the Senate side?
Well, things are a little dicey there. There's still work ahead. You've got one Republican who came out and said that he is against the tax bill at this stage because he feels like it'll favor corporations over other businesses.
I was asked, can you support the current Senate version? I wouldn't vote for it. It's just and simple, but doesn't mean I don't want to, vote for a real solution. And so that's why I work with again, Senate, House, and the White House to get one.
The Senate Finance Committee continues working on its own tax reform proposal. A key Democrat launched this attack a little earlier today.
Republicans are going to test the limits of exactly how many different ways hardworking Americans can be forced to pony up vast sums for corporate handouts.
Still plenty of work ahead after the Thanksgiving recess to get 50 Republicans to vote yes in the Senate on tax reform. Sandra?
A lot of work ahead indeed. All right, we've got the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, now stepping up to the microphone after the House has passed its bill. Let's listen.
Joyful Field General from Houston, our good friend and leader, Kevin Brady. Yeah. Thank you so much. I've got to say, this is nothing short of extraordinary. Let me just tell you, getting 218 members to agree on something as complicated as the most, well, we needed 218, but okay, let me rephrase it. Getting 227 members to agree on something as complicated. This country has not rewritten its tax code since 1986. This power of the status quo in this town are so strong, yet 227 men and women of this Congress broke through that today. That is powerful. Of course, I want to thank not just the members who made this possible today. I want to thank the President. I want to thank his administration. And I want to thank our partners in the Senate who are doing their work as well. From the very start, we said that failure is not an option, and the President and his team have worked so constructively every step of the way with us. He's been a tremendous partner on this issue, and I just got to say how proud I am of this conference. Tax reform is so very hard, but we know that there are people who are really struggling in this country. We know that we are just coming through a decade of real economic anxiety. And we know that this is a nation that has so much more potential that has not yet been tapped. That's what this day is about. That's what getting this done is about. This is about giving hardworking taxpayers bigger paychecks, more take-home pay. This is about giving those families who are struggling peace of mind. It's about getting this economy to grow faster so we get bigger wages, more jobs, and we put America in the driver's seat in the global economy once again. It's about giving people hope and a new opportunity. And it's about making sure that America continues to be the best place in the world, the best place in the world to live, to thrive, to start a business, to create a job, to grow, to construct. We've got a long road ahead of us. This is a very, very big milestone in that long road. We've got a long road ahead of us, and we have a timeline to get this done by the end of the year. We have the Senate right now working on doing this. We're excited about going through the legislative process, going to conference, getting this done, making this bill even better. But most importantly, I am excited on behalf of the American people who are waiting to see us get this done. Last thing I'll say is this. We collectively asked the country in 2016 to give us a chance to go work for them. We asked the people of this country who are struggling, give us a chance to make good by you. Give us a chance to make lives better for you. Give us a chance to improve your life. This conference today did one of the greatest things we could possibly do to make good on that promise, and I'm so proud. Right now, I just want to thank one of the women of our leaders of our Congress. She has been at the forefront of making sure that we get our message out, of making sure that we communicate, and making sure that we have 2 ears and one mouth and that we use them in that proportion. Ladies and gentlemen, our chairwoman of the Republican Conference, Cathy McMorris Rodgers.
Well, this is an exciting day for the American people. It's an exciting day for the American economy. We stand here as representatives.
We've got another Fox News alert for you. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell calling for an ethics investigation into accusations of sexual misconduct against Senator Al Franken. TV journalist and sports broadcaster Leanne Tweeden accusing the Democratic senator of forcibly kissing and groping her on a USO tour in 2006. Tweeden just spoke to reporters in Los Angeles.
I knew all these years later that, oh, well, I thought it was going to be funny. You know, I thought, oh, the comedian, I thought it was going to be I thought it was a joke. I was in bad taste, or I thought it was going to be funny, and I guess it wasn't, or, it was poor taste, or whatever. I mean, nothing like that is ever funny. I mean, is it funny if he does that to your sister, or your daughter, or your wife?
Doug McKelway live in Washington on a busy afternoon. Now growing calls for an investigation there.
That's right, Sandra. And in addition to that, we have learned there may be a second Al Franken accuser. A woman by the name of Melanie Morgan has just tweeted out that she plans to make an announcement this afternoon. We'll keep our eyes on that. But this original accuser is Leanne Tweeden, a news anchor on ABC Radio's McIntyre in the Morning program. She's a former hostess at Hooters, a model for Fredericks of Hollywood. She alleges that in December of 2006, during a USO tour, Al Franken, who had not yet run for public office, wrote a comedy skit for her and him that included a lot of sexual innuendo and a kiss. He allegedly, asked her to rehearse that skit and rehearse the kiss. She refused the kiss, but he allegedly persisted. Ultimately, she relented.
He came at me, and before I even knew it, he put his hand on the back of my head and came towards me and mashed his face against my mouth and stuck his tongue in my mouth. And, I sort of pushed him back and I said, don't ever do that to me again. And I was so angry, and I walked out of there.
She says the tour wrapped up on Christmas Eve, and exhausted, they boarded an Air Force C-17 for the trip home from Afghanistan. She says, quote, I immediately fell asleep, even though I was still wearing my flak vest and Kevlar helmet. It wasn't until I was back in the U.S. and looking through the CD of photos we were given by the photographer that I saw this one. Talking about this particular picture you see right here. She alleges he groped me without my consent while I was asleep. I felt violated over again, embarrassed, belittled, humiliated. How dare anyone grab my breast like this and think it's funny? Well, in a written statement today, Franken is now calling for a Senate ethics investigation of himself. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer wants to see the same for any credible allegations against Franken. Franken added in that statement, quote, I certainly don't remember the rehearsal for the skit in the same way, but I send my sincerest apologies to Leanne. As to the photo, it was clearly intended to be funny, but it wasn't. I shouldn't have done it. Meanwhile, The NRCC, the campaign wing of the House Republicans, has called on Democratic candidates to return donations given to them by Senator Al Franken. Senator, back to you.
All right, Doug McKelway, thank you. Let's go to Fox News politics editor Chris Starwalt. He joins us now. Where do we begin? This is an unbelievable day. We just had this House vote happen. It has passed 227 to 205. Paul Ryan in his news conference a few minutes ago just jokingly started out saying, we got the 218 votes. You know, give yourself a little credit. They got a lot more than they needed here. 13 Republicans in the House voting no, but it has passed. Chris Starwalt.
It has passed, and now the question is, you've got a very different piece of legislation in the Senate, and can the Senate pass anything, number one, and there are real open questions about that, and number two, can those two versions be reconciled to come together to something that can pass both chambers? And we are getting close. We're getting close to some deadlines that the Republicans had set for themselves. But now, as we've been able to say about health insurance changes, cuts to health insurance policies, we can now say to this tax package, which is the House did its part, and the pressure's on the Senate now.
The pressure is on the Senate now. And by the way, most of those lawmakers in the House already fleeing for the Thanksgiving break after this vote just happened. The Senate could still be in session tomorrow, but the pressure is on. We know Ron Johnson was the first to come out, first Republican to come out and say he will not vote for the Senate version of this plan. So they definitely have their trials and tribulations ahead of them. Tax reform is one thing going on this afternoon. Now these growing calls for an investigation, as we just saw the report for Senator Al Franken. This too breaking today. What does all this mean, Chris?
So the situation for Franken now is very much like the situation is for Republican Senate nominee Roy Moore in Alabama, or was for Roy Moore. If this turns out that this was an isolated incident for Franken, that this happened, that he kissed this woman in an unwanted, unwelcome fashion, and then his gag there about the thing with the picture of the sleeping woman, which it is, that's odd. If this is somehow an isolated incident and this has happened, then there'll be a Senate ethics investigation. They'll come forward. He'll be chided officially, and away you go. If there are others who come forward that mount credible accusations that can say, yep, it was him, it was there, and this happened, and it's in the same period of time, then he could have much more serious problems.
And there's a little picture underneath of you right now, Chris Starwalt. Roy Moore is about to speak. He is Judge Roy Moore. He, too, has allegations of sexual misconduct against him. He's expected to speak at any moment. We do not know what he will be saying. But this, too, happening this afternoon.
Well, look, the Republicans are in a real pickle with Moore, who doesn't see, unless he's going to come out today and say, you know, I've decided I'm going to step aside for the good of the party. I don't think he's much of a good of the party kind of operator. His whole brand is on the basis of sticking it to the man. And his whole brand is about being against the Republican establishment, not helping the Republican establishment. And basically the growing consensus among Republicans is that there probably are very few ways around the Democrats winning this seat right now, even in bright red Alabama. There are some options. There are some sort of procedural gimmicks that are available to them that they can try, but a write-in is a very long shot because you split the Republican vote, because even if Moore gets a quarter, 20% of the vote, that still means a divided Republican vote, and Democrat Doug Jones would still win. There are not a lot of good options for Republicans politically with Roy Moore.
So we will get to Judge Roy Moore when he begins speaking there in Birmingham, Alabama. I will wrap it up there. Chris Starwalt, you are amazingly on top of all of this as it breaks. Thank you for joining us. Paul Ryan just saying this is nothing short of extraordinary. Trump was a tremendous partner on this tax reform. What a big day this is. The House just passing the GOP bill with votes to spare. 227 they needed to 18. The vote came after the president spoke to House Republicans on Capitol Hill. What happened at that meeting? A congressman who was there joins us in moments. Al Franken. This as we await Judge Roy Moore to speak on screen left. Joining me now, Congressman Luke Messer, Republican Policy Committee Chairman. If I could ask you, Congressman, to weigh in on all these developments this afternoon.
Well, listen, sexual assault. I think both Roy Moore and Al Franken should step down. In the case of Al Franken, of course, you have these photographs that show his actions, and it's just inappropriate.
And we know that Al Franken says he doesn't exactly remember that situation the same as his accuser, but he has apologized for it. There are calls for an investigation here.
Yeah, I think it should be investigated. And of course, whatever his recollection, that picture is a picture. So.
All right. And as we await Roy Moore, he is about to speak at any moment. What should happen next there?
Well, I think Roy Moore should step aside. I mean, listen, there are enough allegations here and clarity of claims of these women that he should step aside. That would be the best thing for the state of Alabama and for our country.
Congressman, what is the chatter there on Capitol Hill? You know, amid these recent allegations, we know that the Senate is taking steps to address some of these concerns. In the House, Speaker Paul Ryan just put out a memo talking about training, identifying sexual harassment. I guess my question is enough being done to address this?
Well, I think we need to do more. I mean, I'm, of course, the husband to a working wife and the father to two young daughters. And I think sexual harassment is very serious, and more needs to be done about it. It's probably been too late for here on Capitol Hill. We should have done more earlier, but I think it's good that we're taking steps in the right direction. And of course, today, what we really want to be talking about is tax reform, and what a great result that is for the American people.
So let's get right to that. Paul Ryan just spoke. And in his words, this is nothing short of extraordinary. He talked about the president and heaped a lot of praise on him and his administration, saying Trump was a tremendous partner on this. You were in that meeting with the president this morning where he came in to rally Republicans. Was it effective? What happens next with the Senate?
Hey, well, look, this is a great day for the American worker. Bigger paychecks, more jobs, a fairer, simpler tax system. That's all good for working people in this country. I'm so proud of President Trump's leadership. He was incredible today when he came in the room, has done a great job leading on this topic. And then, as you described, we now have to get this passed in the Senate. We've gotten tax cuts passed in the House. The Senate needs to do their job.
All right, we'll see what all this looks like. Everything's changing. Congressman, thank you for your time this afternoon. Congressman Luke Messer. All right, Roy Moore refusing to throw in the towel. We are waiting on him. He is about to step up to the microphone there in front of religious leaders following more sexual misconduct allegations. Some legal analysis next.
This is the 0811X driver from PXG. Without a doubt, it's the longest, lowest spinning, best feeling, sweetest sounding driver we've ever made. Kaboom, baby! PXG, nobody makes golf clubs the way we do, period.
Independence. With that declaration, America was born. Inspired by a belief in the God-given rights of every human being, and in the good that comes from exercising these rights well. The founders of our great nation chose independence. As do we. Hillsdale College accepts no government funding, because independence makes possible the good to which we aspire.
Hi, I'm Rod Paul. As a firm believer in currency competition, I'm excited to see the options that Bitcoin opens up.
Call 1-855-641-COIN or go to coinira.com/TV. That's 1-855-641-COIN or go to coinira.com/TV. Call or go online now.
Contact Coin IRA today to learn about all the options that are available to you.
Call 1-855-641-COIN.
Joseph A. Bank's Black Friday sale. All dress shirts 2 for $89. All executive suits $199. And all Traveler and 1905 sports shirts $39. Plus, get up to 70% off store-wide at the Black Friday sale starting now. Only at Joseph A. Bank.
Okay, folks, let's get the lady of the house back on her feet and help her feel more strength and energy in just 2 weeks.
The complete balanced nutrition of Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure, always be you.
Prudential asked these couples, how much money do you think you'll need in retirement? Then we found out how many years that money would last them. How long do you think we'll keep?
You're gonna leave me back here at year 9? How did this happen?
It turned out a lot of people fell short of even the average length of retirement.
We have to think about not when we expect to live to, but when we could live to.
Let's plan for income that lasts all our years of retirement.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
A Penn State pledge, hazed to death. Shocking new footage leads to serious new charges. Now, Martha hears exclusively from the victim's parents tonight on The Story.
Licensed in 1984 with one goal in mind, to build the best every time. It's always been quality first. It's always been giving the customer the best bang for their buck, and nothing's changing as we go forward. We're going to continue to innovate. We do the best solar power systems, the best roofs, and the best batteries money can buy. We want customers that want to save money. We have the highest quality. You don't start paying for 6 months. It's free electricity. What are you waiting for?
Just call 888-478-5707.
Daddy, I got an A on my art project.
Naomi, this is amazing. You're amazing. You know where this is going to go.
How was your day, Dad?
Oh, my day was great. Check it out. Got another 5-star review.
Awesome, Dad. I'm proud of you, Daddy.
Call 444-0551. Bonnie Plumbing, Heating and Air.
Fox News alert, Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore about to take the stage, and he is fighting back amid growing calls for him to drop out of the race as more women come forward with allegations of sexual misconduct. Eric Guster is managing attorney of Guster Law Firm live in Birmingham, Alabama for us. So as we await Judge Moore to step up to that microphone, what do you think happens next with this?
Roy Moore is going to be defiant. He's not going to drop out. I've seen people say, oh, he's going to drop out now. It won't happen. This is directly in Roy Moore's playbook. You have to remember, Roy Moore was elected to the Supreme Court of Alabama and kicked out once. Then he got back in, won another election, then got kicked out again. This is it in his playbook where the Senate says we're not going to seat him. He doesn't care. This is what he wants, and his followers will follow him to the end of the earth, Sandra.
And you look at those rural counties that he won over Luther Strange, and you don't have to look far to see that he's still got a lot of support from his voters.
He does. And if you look at the race with Luther Strange, where Roy Moore won by 10 percentage points, Luther Strange was backed by then President Trump. Trump came to Alabama to campaign for Luther Strange. Luther Strange put out ads with Trump showing that Trump was giving him support, and Roy Moore won. Roy Moore lost counties such as Jefferson County, where Birmingham is, Madison County, where Huntsville is, and Montgomery County, where Montgomery is. So he lost those municipal counties, but the rural areas where people really come out to vote, there's a Bible Belt where people love the Lord and they follow him based upon his teachings and what he bases political beliefs on.
But Erica, as we sit here and watch, because Roy Moore is about to speak, he's with this group of religious leaders. We're told he's going to be speaking any time now. What do you think he's going to step up there and say regarding this specifically?
He's going to say that these accusations are lies, and if he is caught between a rock and a hard place where he has to admit something, what Roy Moore will tell his followers is that he prayed about it, the Lord forgave him, and they should too. And that will be directly in the playbook of an evangelical candidate such as Roy Moore, because that's his base. He goes to the churches. He has the support of all these preachers. For example, he's going to speak with several preachers behind him, and those are people who get their entire church to come out and vote for him. That's why he beat Luther Strange like Luther stole something.
When you see these string of allegations, you wonder what would make that support, that strong support that he has behind him, what would make that break?
It would take something as outlandish like him being with a little boy or something. It would take something like that to make his core support go away from him, because these people have followed him through his 10 Commandments fight of posting 10 Commandments in his courtroom. They followed him all the way through and supported him in every election that he's entered. He's beaten people down who had, like we just said, the support of the president.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to go to him when he begins speaking. Eric Guster, thank you for your analysis.
Thank you.
All right, well, the House passing that historic tax reform just a few moments ago. So what's next for the bill on the Senate side? And what does all of this mean for you and your money? Plus, a woman accusing Senator Al Franken of sexual assault speaking out.
I think the tide is turning, and you know, what about all the women who don't have microphones and have a voice and can say something, and then it's everywhere on the news?
Tax reform. Speaker Paul Ryan and Republicans celebrating moments later, calling this a historic moment. Our senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram joins me now. Chad, what can you tell us?
Well, this was not one of these palm-sweating kind of votes. The House adopted this 227 to 205. There were 13 Republican noes, mostly from the Northeast, New York and New Jersey. Many of those Republicans were concerned about the lack of the ability to deduct state and local taxes, which are very high in those states. That's why they voted no. Republicans could lose 20. And we had a vote on the budget framework about a month ago, and that was a pretty narrow vote there, Sandra. It was 216 to 212. And so you see that they were able to grow the vote here. I spoke a little bit ago with Dan Donovan, a Republican from New York City. He represents part of Brooklyn and Staten Island. And he indicated that, there really wasn't a format this morning with the president when he came to the Capitol to kind of say, hey, can you come around to this position? And that's why those Republicans voted no. It wasn't a Q&A. They knew where Dan Donovan was. They knew where Pete King from Long Island was. And they frankly didn't need them. Now it's up to the United States Senate.
Peter King is still going to be a very interesting and important part of all of this, and especially those congressmen from those high tax states, New York, New Jersey, California. As we watch that on the House side, you look on the Senate side, and you wonder if you make any predictions for us, because things are still looking pretty complicated on the Senate side.
Yeah, as we speak, the Senate Finance Committee is marking up its bill, writing the bill. We expect to get that tomorrow. Mitch McConnell wants to put that bill on the floor the week after Thanksgiving, and the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, said just a few moments ago they want to merge those bills into a congressional blender and get it done by Christmas time, the end of the year. The senators that we would look at in the Senate would be the usual suspects. John McCain said just a little bit ago this morning he didn't know where he would be on this because the bill's not finished yet. He said, quote, it seems to change hour to hour, which is true. There's a lot of Republican senators who might be concerned about the repeal of the individual mandate. They tried to get Lisa Murkowski as a yes on this bill. She's someone I would still look at. They have a provision in the budget framework to drill in Anwar, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, to maybe get her vote to yes. But you got to remember the experience with health care in the Senate with her and Susan Collins over the summer. They were no's, and you see where you could be, still in the 48-49 vote range. And we don't know what's going to happen with the Alabama Senate seat. We don't know what's going to happen maybe with Al Franken. There's a lot of big question marks.
Yeah, and we're going to get to Roy Moore when he begins speaking in just a minute. Before I let you go, Chad, as far as the House, did most of the members disperse after this vote and go home for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, absolutely. This was kind of a jailbreak moment. We kind of have a running joke around here. You either play the AC/DC version of jailbreak or the Thin Lizzy version of jailbreak. And I tell you, if you were standing outside the Capitol, you would get run over like an NFL running back coming out of the Capitol if you were standing right by the House steps as they try to get to the airport for Thanksgiving.
All right, Chad, thank you. Thank you for staying on top of every bit of that for us. As tax reform was passing, the other big stories on Capitol Hill, sexual misconduct allegations against Senator Al Franken emerging today, and Roy Moore, who is getting ready to speak to religious leaders. Joining us now, David Bossie, President and Chairman of conservative advocacy group Citizens United, and Leslie Marshall, the host of The Leslie Marshall Show and a Fox News contributor. Thanks to both of you for coming on with us this afternoon. David, take your pick. Where should we begin? Let's start out with the newest allegations against Al Franken.
Well, in this atmosphere, Senator Franken is in deep trouble. Those photographs are incredibly damaging. His apology obviously does not go far enough. The woman who came forward is incredibly credible and told a story backed up by photographs. And if the Senate, which has been just all over itself in its denunciation of Roy Moore in Alabama over allegations. Even though they are credible and multiple, they're allegations. Here we have photographic evidence. Al Franken, in this atmosphere, with the hypocrisy that goes on, you need to be talking about expelling Al Franken or his resignation from the Senate.
So after this allegation emerged, Al Franken almost immediately apologized for it, acknowledging the picture, acknowledging this happening, say he remembers it a little bit differently than his accuser, but he did issue an apology right away. We now know that there are calls for an investigation into all of this. Leslie?
Yes, I mean, this I feel, and I'm proud of my fellow Democrats for doing the right thing here, which was to come out and say we need an investigation. Also for not only Senator Franken to apologize, but to say that he would fully cooperate with this investigation. And I think until we have a complete investigation, certainly the photo is worth, more than 1,000 words, and is very disturbing, especially to me, not only as the victim of harassment, but as a woman. This transcends political lines, Sandra, and we see that. And I have to tell you, I really believe that there will be more allegations, left and right, for people in politics coming out. We're hearing from a lot of people on the Hill who say they were victims.
I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't just Democrats calling on that investigation. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, came out immediately, said that he's calling for an investigation into all of this. So Ethics Committee getting involved.
It is nice that they're calling for an investigation. I grant you that. But the denunciation, the unilateral, unacceptable behavior that they all claim in Judge Moore. And I don't disagree with that, but I'm saying that hypocrisy of calling for an investigation, I think it's a good thing, but this is a photograph of what he did to a woman who seems to be asleep. And I just don't know why the American people, I can tell you, are going to be asking, why isn't he being expelled? Just like Menendez with the allegation of underage prostitutes in New Jersey. These are serious allegations. And I think these senators have to be held to the same standard, not a different one.
So let's move on to Roy Moore, because we know he could be speaking at any moment. We will go to him as well. If he wins the special election next month, Leslie, what happens then?
I don't know, because there are a lot of Republicans who not only see him as tarnishing the party and what the party is trying to do to their, for their constituents on a national level, but they, in a sense, will have no choice if he wins to work with him. But I think it's going to be very difficult. Maybe not in that district or in that state, because we've seen support from the GOP. But I think perhaps for some others that maybe didn't come out against him and then have to, in a sense, embrace and work with him, in Washington, and that will be a very difficult road for the GOP politicians.
David, you're left wondering what he is about to step up to that microphone and say. He's with a group of religious leaders. There's a chorus of Republican leaders saying step down. So you wonder if he's going to double down when he steps up to that microphone and defend himself further?
The voters of Alabama are going to decide. And the voters of Alabama have not sent a Democrat, let alone a ultra-liberal Democrat, to the United States Senate in over 25 years. And I think that that's what the people of Alabama are going to have to come to grips with, which is, do they want an abortion-on-demand United States Senator representing Alabama? And I think that the answer to that is no. And I think that that's going to be a big question on Election Day, and whether they can do anything about Roy Moore post-election is really going to be the issue, and how long he gets to stay there. But the people of Alabama will get to decide this in just about a month.
Very serious allegations against both of them. We'll continue to follow these stories for everybody, as well as breaking news on tax reform this afternoon. What a day. All right, thanks to you both, David and Leslie. Good to see you. The House passing that tax reform bill, but we're still waiting on the Senate, of course. We'll talk to a senator about what is next for their bill and whether the Senate could include a paid leave proposal. The House passing the GOP tax bill, with the Senate version still up in the air, but we do know some of the proposals, including a policy that would be historic if enacted. Senate Finance Committee Chairman Orrin Hatch endorsing a plan that would include paid family leave. That legislation put forth by Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer, and she joins us now. That must be very pleasing to you to have this being embraced. You've been pushing for this.
Well, I'm thrilled that Chairman Hatch put it up in his chairman's mark in the Senate Finance Bill.
How does it work?
Well, it is a historic bill that we're going to be passing. It is a voluntary measure, a 25% tax credit to employers who provide paid family leave to their employees. And these are for employees who make less than $72,000 a year. So it is really targeted for hourly workers, those folks who don't have the options of having paid family leave. We know that large companies provide that for their employees, but smaller businesses, it's more difficult. So in this way, we can incentivize them to offer it.
Senator, there's been a lot of praise for your proposal. Pew Research found that 87% of Americans favor your solution to paid leave. The American Action Forum's analysis found that Americans are extremely supportive of this approach, but that doesn't mean there's still not a rough road ahead when it comes to the Senate and their take on this tax plan. Where do you see things going next?
Well, for my part in it, I'm glad it's in the chairman's mark. It had support from Chairman Hatch. It had support from the Republicans on the committee. And as you know, this would be the first time in the history of this country that we would pass a paid family leave proposal. And again, it's targeted to people who really need it. You know, these are people who could take an hour or two off to be able to take their child to a doctor or help an elderly parent. So they don't have that benefit now, and I think we need to reach out and offer this as an incentive. And Americans support it, as you said. It is very popular. It is widely supported across this country.
Senator, so the House just passed their tax plan, and as I mentioned, the Senate is not so sure that they have the votes to pass theirs. I want to show you Congressman Steve Scalise really talking about the differences between the two plans. Listen.
I'm encouraging the Senate to go and pass a bill. I think it's important that they're moving through right now in committee and ultimately getting on the Senate floor after Thanksgiving. Hopefully they get their bill out not long after Thanksgiving so that we can actually go to a conference committee and resolve the differences between the House and Senate and get a bill on President Trump's desk by the end of this year that lowers taxes and creates jobs and gets our economy moving again.
So some make the case that there's more differences than there are similarities. Some say that, they're not so far apart. Here's what the American people think. I want to show you this new Quinnipiac poll. Shows as for the Republican tax plan, the ideas that are out there and on the table right now, 52% disapprove of the Republican tax plan, 25% approve. How do you plan to win over more fans of this tax reform?
Well, by explaining what's in it. I had three priorities when we entered into tax reform and tax cuts. First of all was to be able to provide tax cuts to the middle class so that people could keep more of their own money in their pocket. We do that in our tax plan. We provide for a child tax credit. We double the standardized deduction. People are going to be able to keep more of their own money. Secondly, we want to make sure that small businesses can grow. We all know that they're the drivers in our economy, so we want to be able to offer incentives to them as well. And third, we need to be competitive globally, and that's also covered in our plan. So I'm going to be spending the week in Nebraska. I was there over Veterans Day for 2 days. I'm back about every weekend, and I'm explaining this plan to Nebraskans. And I can say for the most part, we've had a great reception. People understand that this is an opportunity and we can't miss it. We need to get this passed so that we can turn this economy around.
The pressure is on, and I know many of your colleagues, the House is already leaving for Thanksgiving, and I know many of your colleagues will be leaving soon for the Thanksgiving break as well. Senator Deb Fischer, thanks for coming on with us. Good to see you. Well, the Trump administration... News alert: embattled Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore about to speak before a group of religious leaders in Birmingham amidst multiple sexual misconduct allegations. And we are also taking a live look at the White House briefing room, which is expected to start at any moment. All right, another Obama-era regulation reversed. The Trump administration says importing elephant trophies from Zimbabwe and Zambia will be allowed with special permits. U.S. officials say this will actually help conservation. But the move has its share of critics, that's for sure. Rich Edson is live from the State Department. What prompted this change, Rich?
Good afternoon, Sandra. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says the changes will enhance the survival of elephants in Zimbabwe and in Zambia. The service spokesperson in a statement says to us, quote, legal, well-regulated sport hunting is part of a sound management program, can benefit certain species by providing incentives to local communities to conserve those species and by putting much-needed revenue back into conservation. The Great Elephant Census says there's about 352,000 African savanna elephants in 18 countries. That's a drop of 30% in 7 years, with declining populations in Zimbabwe and neighboring Zambia. The president of the U.S. Humane Society said in a blog post, quote, let's be clear. Elephants are on the list of threatened species. The global community has rallied to stem the ivory trade, and now the U.S. government is giving American trophy hunters the green light to kill them. This permit expires for both countries at the end of next year. Sandra.
And Rich, all of this coming with this massive instability in Zimbabwe.
That's right. Political instability ongoing there. The military has arrested President Robert Mugabe. He's been the president in that country since its founding in 1980, 37 years ago. There is an ongoing negotiation right now as to a political transition there, but it is unclear what the result will be or when those negotiations will conclude. The military remains on the streets of Zimbabwe's capital as it detains Mugabe under house arrest. Last week, Mugabe expelled his vice president to open the way for his wife to succeed him as the country's leader. The State Department's urging American citizens to shelter in place until further notice. The State Department official says the U.S. Embassy is closed again today to the public because of the political instability. The official says the U.S. has expressed concerns to Zimbabwe about any type of military takeover there, Sandra.
All right, Rich, thank you for the report. We are now awaiting the White House press briefing. That could begin at any minute now on a very busy news day. Sexual allegations, misconduct allegations against Senator Al Franken on the table, and Roy Moore. He's also about to speak. Once that briefing gets started, we will go to it live.